I'm now at the China National Convention Center. This is the main venue for the 2021 China International Fair for Trade in Services. And very soon, the opening ceremony will be held right here, and Chinese President Xi Jinping is going to deliver a keynote speech via video, and Chinese Vice Premier Han Zheng and Hu Chenhua are going to attend the ceremony along with 500 distinguished guests. Now, this year's theme is called Towards Digital Future and Service-Driven Development. And this theme is so relevant today because we know since the start of the pandemic, many new services have popped up and become popular, like telemedicine, digital healthcare, and smart office solutions. And digital economy is now pivotal to global economic growth, which explains why a big area is dedicated to digital services this year. But that's not the only highlight. Green economy is another focus. We know China aims to reach carbon peak by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. But experts say doing all this requires wide application of green technologies, especially in areas like manufacturing, construction, and transportation. And this year's fair is really contributing to this fight against climate change by offering this platform where all those technologies can be displayed, and a high-level forum will be held later in the week on this topic. And let's not forget, a couple months from now, Beijing will host the second Olympic Games, the Winter Olympic Games. And so sports services will definitely be a highlight of this fair as well. What new products have been developed to facilitate athletes' training, and what new services have been offered for ordinary people to include them in winter sports? A lot to expect from exhibitors this year. Now, speaking of trade in services, the latest data shows the service sector now accounts for nearly 56% of the country's GDP, and imports and exports of services totaled over $360 billion in the first 6 months. So you can tell how important is this sector to the Chinese economy. But on a global level, trading services continues to lag behind, which is why organizers hope this event will further boost the trade, bring more opportunities to companies, and more importantly, inject more impetus to global economy.
Thanks so much, Wei Yao. Now, at last year's fair, President Xi Jinping shared his thoughts on how to revive the world economy through globalization. He called for the international community to jointly work on an open and easy environment for cooperation. He promised that China will keep opening up and further open its service market to the world. And he also stressed innovation. President Xi suggested the world should be following the trend of digitalization, and China is working on the establishment of an alliance for trade in service. And joining us now in the studio is our guest, Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics. Welcome to the special program, Professor. Good to see you.
Yes.
This is the second time that this fair is being held here in Beijing since the pandemic began. What do you think is the message from Beijing, and what is China trying to achieve by holding such a trade fair?
It is not an easy job because the pandemic is still looming large in many parts of the world, and China really managed a stellar performance, which is highly impressive. And now it is China for the time to show its responsibility to open its market for global trade, and also China's commitment to continue to work with many partners in the world. Number one, to address the climate change issues, which is a long plague among the entire mankind, and also to address the pandemic, which is the immediate threat to human interaction. And so I was still impressed by the fact that during the explosion of the pandemic, we were also committed to open the Shanghai Import-Expo last year. And then there were many suspicions before, whether China is able to attract visitors or strike a deal with many partners, but it turned out to be a huge success. And now I do not think there's much surprise that we're going to harvest another success, not only in terms of the trade deals, but also in the confidence that people are able to work together in the most challenging time.
Right, and this fair is said to be the only comprehensive forum or trading platform in the world covering all the 12 sectors of trade and services defined by the WTO. How important do you think this fair is to opening up China's economy?
Well, we we do see that the Chinese economy has undergoing the structural changes where the service sector takes more than 56% of the entire GDP. So this is really the foundation for China to be able to work with the rest of the world on sharing the many of those fruition in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the intellectual property, in terms of the engineering, consulting, etc. In addition to the conventional way of service by doing the hard labor work and building bridges and setting up the pipelines, etc. So this is really a showcase also to many parts of the world where they are trapped in the mid-income trap. Where should they go? So this is the way to develop the path for high quality growth for a developing economy.
The president is about to give a speech momentarily. Do you have any expectations what he will be touching upon?
I think he will reiterate the importance of global collaboration and driving away the protectionism, particularly under the pretense of COVID-19, and also that he will tell the world that China lives to its commitment, and China is really delivering not only to the Belt and Road but also to the world. And also China will pay the right type of responsibility to contribute to the reduction of carbon emission, and also China will be able to share with the rest of the world with the knowledge, with the goods, and also with more expertise in managing for a sustainable development. So China is there, under the spotlight, whether China continue to serve the engine for global recovery and global growth.
And one of the key focus of this year's forum is digital future. We have a report on that. Let's take a look at this. Digital will be a key word this year, and with a special section dedicated to digital services companies. Xie Hongzhou has more.
This little guy here was designed to patrol construction sites. With the help of live cameras, AI and big data, this robot dog can detect anything that goes wrong on a site. This is just one example of what the people at Glodden, a company exhibiting in the digital service section, call digital construction. They provide digital solutions for construction projects, covering cost estimating, smart site management, and smart building. They say their services have helped clients to increase efficiency by at least 50%.
We used to have someone on the site to manually document how our personnel and equipment manage tasks. This requires time and energy, but now with the smart site system, which utilize big data, the Internet of Things and AI analysis, everything is visible on a screen. The location of workers, condition of equipment, and even potential accident risks.
The company is joining the fair for the second time. They say last year was a good first step, which allowed them to introduce the concept of digital construction to the market.
We have been exchanging a few rounds of conversation, in particular with one client, and we continue to engage with others. So I would say that all around the experience has been very positive. In fact, we are investing more and more this year, and we hope that this platform can give us the opportunity to meet more and more partners, future clients, prospects, and give us also maybe new ideas for our development.
The new digital service section will host around 40 leading companies in the industry, showcasing their latest contributions to digital construction, digital transport, and digital media.
The digitalization of services is becoming a new growth engine for the services trade. In 2020, China's trade volume in digital services saw a yearly increase of 8.4%, accounting for over 40% of the total trade in services.
The coronavirus pandemic continues to disrupt trade in services like tourism and transport, but the crisis has speeded up the growth of digital services. The fair's theme of a digital future and service-driven development echoes that trend and shows China's ambition to boost the industry. 谢洪洲 CGTN 北京。
Executive Director of the World Trade Centers Association, Robin van Poyenbroek, is a keynote speaker at this year's China International Fair for Trade and Services. He talked to CGTN about digital globalization and the world after the pandemic. Listen.
Recently, the World Economic Forum has done a survey on globalization. Well, the results show that people's support for globalization has declined, with half of people unsure of its benefits and a third advocating for trade barriers. How can you explain the reason behind the phenomenon? And what's your expectation of future globalization in post-pandemic period?
So I think to your question, it's a general malaise, a general frustration that people feel that life is just not getting better for them, for the average person, both in developed, and in developing countries, and that people are looking to find other ways to improve their situation, which is then, this leads to political rhetoric again, which often in certain countries leads to measures that actually are counterproductive. Now, the future, it's a good question. How is this going to end, and where is this going to lead to? It's really like we've seen an acceleration of the digital transformation that was, by the way, already underway before the pandemic, but we now see a whole new a new phase of globalization, which I like to call a digital globalization, where we see on the one side of the spectrum, people have been obviously physically more distant from their communities because all sort of restrictions. But on the other side, the world has become increasingly interconnected digitally. The fact that we can have this conversation over Zoom, maybe in the past we would have to meet in person or meet with a journalist and set up an infrastructure. So this is really about the world entering this new phase of globalization, of digital globalization. And we also see that companies throughout the pandemic have across the board gained tremendous resilience. The ones that have actually integrated and implemented technology more than they've done before. And they've thrived throughout the pandemic just because of their successful transformation and adoption of digitization. The globalization is here to stay. It will just move in a different direction.
Well, what's your expectation on this China International Fair for Trade and Services?
I would also think that the theme of this year was very well chosen towards digital future and service-driven development. This is really a great way to summarize some of the major trends of global trade in let's call it almost a post-pandemic era. And the digitalization is fundamentally transforming the way we live and the way we do business. And we've all seen that we've adopted a different life-work balance here. And so that the digital component of how we live our lives is there to stay. I think the fact that CIFTIS is being organized in person this year is a great boost to the global conference and exhibitions industry, which is still in many places in disarray. So I think a lot of kudos and credit to China to manage to organize this in a very safe way. And as we've observed an acceleration of digital transformation across the board during the pandemic, with the service sector being particularly active in that regard. So I think the 2021 CIFTIS will serve as a great platform to showcase innovations and new developments in service trade. So I'm very excited about this year's program, and I very much look forward to working closely with the CIFTIS to promote the developments of global trade and services and to continue our long friendship and partnership in China.
This year's Service Trade Fair's theme is toward digital future and service-driven development. The key word here, as I mentioned before, is digital. And China is going through this rapid digital transformation, and understanding this massive shift and how to harness it would be vital for all the businesses around the world, isn't it?
Definitely. Even 20 years ago, we couldn't imagine that we could step into such an era. And not to mention that China is able to play a leadership role in this particular field. And now we are having it in front of us, and we really enjoy it in our life, in our work. And now it is really transforming the way people doing business, people communicate with each other, and people get engaged in entertainment. So what a wonderful world we are, embracing.
Oh, absolutely. And China has the world's second largest digital economy, second only to the United States. Like you mentioned, it's leading in so many applications, mobile apps, mobile payments, facial recognition, right?
Yeah.
It's generating a lot of business opportunities, but for, business businesses outside of China who are trying to get into this new exciting market, where should they start?
Well, infrastructure is fundamental because they need the right of communication infrastructure. People need to have some apps, with their mobile phone, with the right type of Wi-Fi, and actually to which China can help, because we are not only there, sitting at home, but we are also going all out to help and work with many partners in the world, particularly people from Africa, from Latin America. They are really benefiting from it, from small mobile phones, to telecommunication devices. And two is that, we got to have a new game plan that because people need to, for example, to sign a contract virtually, and how the encryption can be recognized has a legal binding force, and so that's something that very new. And the other is that the animosity people may be able to create through miscommunication. How can that be settled through a more efficient way in the sort of arbitration system, etc. So it needs a holistic approach, as to set up a cozy environment to facilitate the benefit that people can really derive from the digital world.
Professor, stay with me. We want to take a short break. You're now watching a special coverage of China's second International Fair for Trade and Services. President Xi Jinping will be speaking soon. We'll get reactions after the short break. Don't go away.
A global platform to spur global growth. It's happening in Beijing at the 2021 China International Fair for Trade and Services. CGTN will show you the exciting new opportunities in a new era of openness in China, and how the service economy is powering into a digital future. Only on CGTN.
Welcome back. Countries are expecting to benefit from the fair, including trade exchanges between China and ASEAN countries. Let's now talk more about this with our correspondent Ryan Meltzer in Kuala Lumpur. Good to see you there, Ryan. How have trade ties between China and ASEAN countries fared recently?
Well, despite the pandemic, trade between ASEAN and China is booming, continues to boom. ASEAN has become China's #1 trading partner since the pandemic began, whereas China has been ASEAN's #1 trading partner for a number of years. So there's been a shift there. And when we're talking about services, the trade in services kind of goes parallel with the physical trade in goods, as it were. And as well, we've seen a big boom as well in the trade in services between ASEAN and China, although it's somewhat asymmetrical. It is largely a trade from China to ASEAN, especially in what's called the modern services sector. So these are, for instance, ICT related, very advanced engineering and so on. What we're seeing as well is that with RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, having been signed, that should open the door to more collaboration in the services sphere and to greater trade in services, as well as countries whittle down the list of services sectors in which they restrict foreign involvement and foreign investment. So over time, we're going to see an increase in services further. Where we're seeing China's major involvement in the services sector in the ASEAN region is in ICT services. This would include e-commerce, e-finance, also artificial intelligence, helping countries basically move toward Industry 4.0. We've seen big Chinese companies basically being the pioneers in this region when it comes to e-finance and digital payments and the like. And as well with e-commerce, Alibaba has a large offshoot in Southeast Asia called Lazada that is the major player in the region as well. And companies such as Alibaba and Huawei as well are very big in cloud computing. Huawei here in Malaysia helped Malaysia build the first ever locally owned cloud system for the country, whereas Malaysia previously had to rely on foreign companies for their cloud systems. Huawei built a locally owned public cloud for Malaysia, while Alibaba is also very big in the cloud sector as well. And what we're going to see is that this is becoming even more important. These ICT services, data centers, cloud centers, artificial intelligence, robotics become more and more important as countries of the ASEAN region try to dig themselves out of this pandemic and the economic damage that it's caused, and they want to reboot their economies, basically. This is a prime time for them to look to move up the economic value chain, to leave behind more labor-intensive industries and move toward Industry 4.0. And analysts tell me they foresee China and China's ICT companies playing a very critically important role in helping ASEAN countries achieve that goal through their export in services, advanced services, ICT services.
Exciting stuff. Ryan Meltzer joining us live in Kuala Lumpur. Thank you, Ryan. So, Professor Liu, let me get your take on what's been said there, especially your assessment on the service trade relations now between China and ASEAN countries.
Well, we had mixed feelings, by working with ASEAN, because we used to be competitors. We make the same type of garments. The low-end labor-intensive industry was really competing for U.S. market, EU market. Now we are really reshaping the global supply chain, where China is moving more to the service intensity or knowledge intensity industry. And now actually we are able to have the right type of economic structure to work together and to build more trust. And the fact that China is really building the showcase, actually a number of my students who come from Indonesia, from the Philippines, they learn marketing from me, and they benefit a great deal by setting up small vending shops on Alibaba, etc. And they just they feel so much excited by working with the Chinese market, with their former classmates, and so this is the right type of the friendly relationship we are really shaping, and that is there to foster enhanced the regional trade. And also due to the interruption of the pandemic, and now the geographical proximity does really turn out to be a good advantage for us to work together, and that's why they have consistently to stay on top of the Chinese trading partnership.
Stay with me, Professor Liu. Now, China has been Africa's largest trading partner for the past 12 years, and Chinese investment in the continent's service sector has been increasing. Let's now talk about this with Robert Nagila joining us live in Nairobi. Great to see you there, Robert. In what industries can we see trade and cooperation between African and Chinese enterprises?
Well, there are quite a number. In the financial sector, for example, through lending and foreign direct investment, which has largely gone towards upgrading the continent's infrastructure for better connectivity. Also, a number of African countries have adopted China's national currency as their national currency reserve. This has not only made trade between China and Africa much, much easier, smoother, but this has also strengthened ties between China and Africa. Now, in the communication sector, China has helped build the continent's digital infrastructure with affordable technology. What this has done, it has opened up the digital space across the continent, made ease of doing business and trade between not just Africa amongst themselves, but also with China. But nowhere is this more pronounced than in the retail sector, where trade and cooperation between China and Africa is worth billions of dollars, but crucially has helped spark economic growth in Africa and also uplifted a lot of people on the continent from poverty.
And Robert, the COVID-19 pandemic has hit global tourism industry especially hard. How's the situation there in Africa?
Well, if you go back to 2019, before the pandemic,
it looks like we are having some technical difficulty with our connection there. That was Robert Nagila joining us live from Nairobi. Let me bring back Professor Liu. We have a number of cooperation mechanisms between China and African countries, such as the Belt and Road Initiative and the framework of China-Africa Cooperation Forum. How does service trade fit into all these?
Well, I agree with the guest that first of all, we need to have the connectivity. And second, I think the most important is really capacity building. We need to have the people with the right type of skills to access the digital world, and where they can also be able to set up their shops and be able to work remotely with their partners around the world, and particularly with China. And the other is that consulting services are really working very well, because in terms of the city zoning, in terms of the engineering and agriculture technology, and also the medicine is also there to work a great deal. And we supported them with the Confucius Institute and some cultural centers. But now we also have the what we call the Luban workshop, where that's the right type of assembly line and skill sets that's available for FX partners. So this is the right type of approach that build trust, build capacity, and then build the potential for future business.
Another thing which makes this year's trade fair special is that 15 subforums revolving around carbon neutrality will also be held. China has set a quite ambitious target, actually, to become carbon neutral by the year before 2060, actually, and the world will be watching. How is China going to achieve that goal? What do you think they will be discussing at these subforums?
Well, of course, the world wants to lock down China's commitment. China is facing double challenges. One is that they need to have the reasonable growth of the economy, while China is still the main global factory to supply those people who work in the Wall Street, to in Hollywood, on the London, the financial city, etc. And in the meantime, we also have another displacing or a curse that because we have too many coal that's there as a power generator, and how we can really shift our energy structure so that we can be number one, we can be more environmental friendly in terms of the power generation. And number two is that we continue to work as a centerpiece for the global supply chain. And so this is a double challenge that China has to face. But China has all the time delivered to its commitment despite of the difficulties, and we have made a number of impossibilities possible, so that we still have the confidence.
And for those of the viewers who are just joining us, you are watching at the live picture at the CIFTIS. The opening ceremony of the trade fair is about to begin momentarily. We are standing by for that opening ceremony, and the president is about to give a speech. When that happens, we're going to bring it to you in full. And this is the live signal coming out from the China National Convention Center, which will be one of the two venues that's hosting this year's trade fair. Something different is that the fair this year will be held at two venues in Beijing. One is that Shougang Industrial Park. The other one is the one you're looking at now, which is the China National Convention Center. And Professor Liu, sports service is also one of the focus here. Sports has recently become a new star of China's service trade, actually, and people are willing now to spend big on fitness, on wellness. But the industry is one of the hardest hit during the pandemic, right? A lot of games have been canceled, gyms being closed. They do need some impetus to be revived. Do you think CIFTIS can help do that?
Number one, that look at how many medals we have earned from the Olympic. So that's a brand building.
Oh, they were amazing.
So that's the show of our real capacity. Two, what is people's biggest worry now? It's health. So to address pandemic, yes, people need to keep distancing, but they need to keep their vitality. So therefore, gym is still highly and even more seriously demanded in that regard. You need to prepare your right type of immunity system to combat the possible attack of the virus. So, and then also that because right now the Gini coefficient is getting low, and therefore people does have more resources, more income to support the quality of life. they need to live longer and they need to live healthier. And that's the only way to do that. And therefore, they need professional guidance, and hence this type of industry. So, and now with China demanding that many of those excessive textbook training to be reduced, tutoring. And the kids will also have to join these forces. I do see that there's going to be a boom in this particular industry, although health consideration is still the priority.
The kids will have more time spending on playing sports, arts, which is fantastic. But also, with the Winter Olympics coming next year, China's ice and snow market is estimated to reach about 1 trillion yuan by 2022. And the country actually has set a development goal on that sector, right?
Yeah.
The goal is to have more than 300 million people join the winter sports, and more interest will potentially generate more potential.
Yes, I think it's not only the gathering of so many people. That's of course there to develop the tourism and hospitality industry, and hopefully by that time.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt there, Professor. We are hearing words that the opening ceremony of CIFTIS is about to begin. All the officials are making their entrance there. Again, this is the opening ceremony of the 2021 China International Trade Fair for Service, or CIFTIS. President Xi Jinping, once again, is expected to deliver a speech via video link, and when that happens, we're going to bring it to you. So that is happening there in the venue hosting this trade fair, Professor. What are you specifically will be looking out for at this week-long trade fair?
Well, actually, before I came here, I talked with my grandson. And
matter of fact, I'm so sorry to interrupt again.
Yeah.
We are hearing words that some actions are happening there at the venue. Let's actually listen in.
Vice Premier Han Zheng, Secretary Cai Qi, Your Excellencies, leaders of participating countries and international organizations, heads of delegation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Good evening. Welcome to the Global Trade in Services Summit of the 2021 China International Fair for Trade in Services. On behalf of the organizing committee, I wish to express my hearty appreciation to the national governments, international organizations, friends from across sectors, and all the staff for your support and participation. A warm welcome to all the distinguished guests attending online and in person. This year's CIFTIS is held amid twists and turns of the pandemic in the world and fragile global economic recovery. It demonstrates the Chinese government's serious commitment to the growth of services trade and firm confidence in expanding high-standard opening up. President Xi Jinping will deliver important remarks virtually. Vice Premier Han Zheng is attending in person. Also attending and addressing the summit today are President Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus, President Louis Lacalle of Uruguay, President Emerson Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, Taoiseach Miguel Martin of Ireland, Prime Minister Phan Binh Minh of Vietnam, Secretary General Matthias Cormann of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, Acting Secretary General Isabel Durant of the UN Conference on Trade and Development, and Deputy Director General Anabel Gonzalez of the WTO. We are also joined by 16 ministers from 15 countries, diplomatic envoys in China, representatives of international organizations, delegates of trade delegations, and representatives of multilateral, multinational companies, Chinese companies, and business associations. This year's CIFTIS focuses on the new trend of digitization of services trade. An exhibition on China's achievements in trade in services and a special exhibition area for digital trade are set up. And the Shougang Park is used for the first time to be a thematic venue. Total exhibition space expanded by 18% from last year. International exhibitors account for 51%. More than 11,000 companies from 153 countries and regions have registered as exhibitors, up by 45% from the last event. I hope you will make full use of the CIFTIS platform to establish contact, enhance exchanges, and strive to increase cooperation results and make new contributions to the growth of global trade and services. Now, please welcome President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China to deliver the video remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good evening. On behalf of the government and people of China, and also in my own name, I wish to extend a warm welcome and cordial greetings to all the distinguished guests of the 2021 China International Fair for Trade in Services. This year's CIFTIS is themed towards digital future and service-driven development. I believe that the active participation of you all will make this year's event a special and productive one. Trading services is a key component of international trade and an important area of economic and trade cooperation between countries. It has a big role to play in fostering a new development paradigm. We will work with all other parties to uphold openness, cooperation, mutual benefit, and win-win, share opportunities in the growth of services trade, and promote world economic recovery and growth. We will open up at a higher level by implementing across the country a negative list for cross-border services trade, and by exploring the development of national demonstration zones for the innovative development of trading services. We will create more possibilities for cooperation by scaling up support for the growth of the services sector in Belt and Road partner countries, and by sharing China's technological achievements with the rest of the world. We will further improve rules for the services sector by supporting Beijing and other localities in piloting the alignment of domestic rules with the ones in high-standard international free trade agreements, and in building demonstration zones of digital trade. We will continue to support the innovation-driven development of small and medium-sized enterprises by deepening the reform of the new Third Board and setting up a Beijing stock exchange as the primary platform serving innovation-oriented SMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, let us join hands to defeat the COVID-19 pandemic and get through these tough times. Using peace, development, and win-win cooperation as the golden key, we will be able to address the challenges facing the world economy and international trade and investment, and create a brighter future for all. Thank you.
That was President Xi Jinping delivering a keynote speech at the opening ceremony of CIFTIS, officially kicking off the trade fair. The president made several key announcements there. He emphasized the role of services in establishing a new development pattern. He said China will continue to open up with measures including a negative list for cross-border service trade, strengthening support for Belt and Road countries to develop service industries, and establishing digital trade pilot zones. He also reaffirmed support for innovative development in small and medium-sized enterprises and announced the establishment of a new stock exchange in Beijing. That's one of the major headlines there. Let me get Professor Liu here, get his take on all of this. What do you think of this new stock exchange, first of all, in addition to the two that we already have, which is, of course, the Shanghai and Shenzhen Stock Exchange? What do you think the new Beijing Stock Exchange will bring to China and the world?
Well, stock exchange is also high-end service per se, but in the meantime, it is really the blood that supports all type of business, be it manufacture, be it service trade. And the other is that we are trying to roll out the digital currency, and stock exchange, I think, is going to be a playground to test the further implementation and expansion of the digital currency, digital RMB. And now that is also the right type of platform for people to have investment opportunities, from portfolio to direct investment. So that's there to support not only the larger scale companies, but also small and medium-sized businesses. I believe that more of those smaller firms, and particularly those private ones, will be able to benefit a great deal more. And now also the technological intensive, with the better innovation and with unique contribution to a high level of development, will also receive a better favor out of this one.
What other major takeaways did you get there from President's speech?
Well, it's a continued resolve to open China's market. Remember that we used to only restrict manufacturing, for global participation in the Chinese special economic zone, and gradually, we expand some of the low-end services, like building railroads and also buying the technology from the Western world. And now it is really the digital time that China is taking a leadership, and China begins to export more of its intellectual properties. Actually last year we do see that despite of the difficulty in communicating with the world, and our IP licensing income has really surged by more than 70%. And so this is the way that we need to go forward, and now we have the confidence and we have the right type of leadership. And so all stakeholders will get really involved to usher in a bright future during the difficult time that brings not only confidence to Chinese people, but also to the rest of the world that are working on a sincere basis with China.
What do you think will be included in this demonstration zone for trade and service that the President just mentioned?
I think one, of course, the government service need to be streamlined, and because those services like training, consulting, those conventional ones, and then how do you play robots with the right type of ground, and how do you play the drones with the right type of air protection. So this will be there to have the right type of game rules to regulate, but also in the same time to facilitate the rolling out of the digital service industry. And also exchange center will be set up to really to facilitate the transactional businesses between not only Chinese firms, but also with global firms. So I think training is also very important for people to master the skills in the digital technology, and so that they are able to amplify this in their workplace and even at home. So, and actually I talked with my grandson, what do you expect? And he would like to see the more robust down thing and building his Legos, etc. So, this is really inspiring to all generations involved.
All right, a lot to look forward to. Thank you so much for your insights and perspectives, yes. Professor Liu Zheng, joining us here in the studio. Always good to see you. And that's going to do it for our special coverage of China International Fair for Trade and Services. China 24 is next with more on the event with Zhongshi. Stay with us.